Welcome growers. Today we're going to be building Black Dog LED's 5x5 complete grow kit. We're going to start from start to finish and show you everything in between, from hanging the lights to building the tent, hanging the fans, and so forth. Before we begin though, we do have a couple things we want to mention. Where you place your tent has a big impact on your yields as well as the success in your garden. So before you go ahead and build your tent, you want to make sure that you're in a place that's not too cold and not too warm. Because if it's too warm, your plants will be stressed, and if it's too cold, your plants will lag, and they'll be a little bit stressed as well and not going to give you those perfect yields. Be sure when you're looking to do a placement that you have a room that's under 80 degrees and still above 65. You also want to make sure that that room is not a moist or damp area, because that could cause mold or mildew later on when you get into flower. The final note here, you want to make sure that room is big enough so you have adequate workspace and is well ventilated. Now that we know where we're going to place this tent, don't think you're going to sit back and relax, because it's time to start building. Today we're going to be building our 5x5 grow tent with our BudBox. Now every tent comes with its own set of instructions, which will lay out every component that you have here. Now the 5x5 grow tent, to make it easy, along with our instructions, will come with a assembly. Now the 5x5 is a 150 by 150 by 200, which is the BudBox XL Plus. This is another visual representation of how to assemble this tent if you don't want to watch this video. To get started, we're going to go ahead and lay out all of our components, as you see here in front of us. This will make sure that we have everything we need and get us familiar with what we're going to be using. Our first step is to go ahead and unravel and unwrap our tent. To do so, we're going to lay it out, start to unzip it, and then get our bottom portion ready to put our poles in. As you notice, when you're unraveling the tent and unzipping it, the tent can be very large. So you want to make sure that you're doing this in an appropriate sized room. Now we're going to start with our foundation. This is going to consist of 3 of the A poles, 4 corner pieces, and then this very unique looking bar, and this is the H bar. This bar is going to go towards the porthole that's going to allow you to bring cords in and out. Let's go ahead and build our foundation. To start, I like to lay the poles out every spot that I'm going to use them. Remember, put your H bar towards the porthole, and the remaining A bars go on the edges. Your 4 corner pieces are also going to go in the corners. Now you will note that they have a little rubber stopper here. This rubber stopper is to go towards the fabric of your tent. This 1 keeps it from ripping, and 2 holds it nice and snug. To begin, to put our corner piece on, making sure our rubber stopper is pointed towards the fabric in the edge, we're going to take our A bar. Now every pole has this little nipple right here. You're going to make sure that this prong sits nice and secure with a little pressure, push down and insert into the hole. This makes sure it's nice and tight and it's going to hold firmly. Once we have our corner piece built, we're going to go ahead and put it right into the edge of the tent. All right, now that we have our foundation built and all of our poles nice and secure in the corners, we're going to go ahead and start building the walls. Our next step is to put our B poles onto our corner pieces. This is going to build our walls, and it's very simple and easy to do. The B poles have 2 prongs. One prong goes into your corner, fits nice and snug, just like so, and we continue to build. You shall not pass. Very important here. Before you go any further, you want to make sure that you put your slide scrog kit on. To begin, we're going to put our slide scrog corner pieces on. Now this is important because you want to make sure that the hole is facing up. This is where your ratchets are going to be connected to, so you can adjust your corners and your slide scrog at any level. For easy installation, if you want to go ahead and put your corner pieces on with your bar, you can easily put them on both poles and slide it right down. Now that we have the 4 corners on, we're just going to add the other 2 side bars. Now we're going to finish building our walls. We're going to take our C poles and put them on our B bar. Now you're going to notice that this has a hole on one side and a prong on the other. The prong goes up and your hole is going to connect to the B pole. It's important to make sure that your connection is nice and tight here. You don't want anything to slip, as this is going to be holding on your frame. Now it's time to put on our corner pieces. Remember, just like in the beginning, you want to make sure that this rubber stopper is facing towards the outside of the fabric, keeping it from ripping and holding your tent nice and secure. Now that we have all 4 corner pieces in, it's time to put our A bar in to complete our frame. Again, you want to make sure that those nipples are pushed through those holes nice and tight and secure. Now that we have our tent frame fully assembled, it's time to go ahead and put on our tent skirt. Now the fabric is easy to put on, but you want to make sure you unzip every piece of this. This way that it comes up, we're going to put the top on first, and then we're going to put the sides on. But it needs to be fully unzipped to make sure that you have it as loose as possible. Now that we have our top put onto our tent frame, it's holding it nice and secure. The only thing we have left to do is zip up our tent. What's really nifty is these corner pieces have this little hook. This allows the front of your tent to actually be held up by the side over here. By doing so, you're going to allow yourself to have more free range to work. The last part of our tent construction is these 3 last bars. Now you have these E bars, which are going to hang across the top, and they're going to be the first ones you're going to assemble. Then, I don't know what the F this is. Oh, it's the F bar. That's going to go on last and underneath these 2 bars. That's why it has a longer hook. You want to make sure before you hang these bars that you put your silicone slide right on. Now this is going to help it hold tight against the frame above. The E bar is where all of your tent's equipment will be hanging from. Now the F bar is going to support that. So you want to make sure that the orientation of your E bar fits to where you're going to be hanging things inside of your tent. Make sure you put your rubber on before you do anything. Now that we have our E bars hanging above, it's time to put our F bar in. Remember, the F bar goes underneath the E's. All right, guys, now our bars are ready to hang. Now that we have our tent fully assembled, it's time to go ahead and add our accessories. The first thing we're going to start adding is our carbon filter and fan. As you see here, we have our carbon filter, our 6-inch max fan, our ducting, our 2 heavy-duty ratchets, and our tape. Let's go ahead, build it, and get it ready. To start hanging our carbon filter, we're going to start with the ratchets. We're going to take our ratchets and go right over our cross beams, connect it really easily, and this is what's going to actually hold the carbon filter up. Now that we have our ratchets in place, we're going to go ahead and make a loop. We're going to take our ratchet, attach it here. Now this is going to hold the back end of the carbon filter and allow us to have it nice and tight while we connect this one and start building and putting it together and slowly raising it up. If you have a friend that you trust and wants to help you, I highly suggest having someone here to help raise this together. It makes it a lot easier. Are you ready? And up. Now that we have the carbon filter hung, it's time to put our max fan up. On the sticker, you will notice an arrow that has the AF. That means airflow. So you want to make sure that your fan is facing towards the carbon filter. This is going to allow it to suck through the carbon filter, through our duct, through our fan, and start circulating inside the tent. Let's go ahead and get this hung. To get started hanging our fan, we're going to start by taking our ratchet. We're going to take the ratchet and loop it 4 times around the pole. What this does is it gives it tension and it's going to allow it to hold nice and steady. Next, we're going to take our fan and we're going to attach our ratchets through the metal bracket. Now that our fan is hanging, we're just going to ratchet it up and make it nice and tight and secure. Now that we have our fan ratcheted up as well as our carbon filter, next step is to get our ducting. To cut your ducting to size, you're going to need a pair of scissors and a pair of clips or tin snips. To begin, we're going to punch a hole through the duct and just cut around. Once you get to the center section, you're going to take your clips, or again, your tin snips, and there you have it. A nice piece of ducting to go to our fan and carbon filter. Now that we're ready to hang our ducting onto our fan, I'd like to show you a tip and a little trick that I like to do. Take a little piece of tape, cut a piece, and I'm going to put this on the top overhanging so that I can tape the duct to it. It gives it more support. Now that we have our duct secured to our fan, we're going to go ahead and tape up the rest to make it nice and secure. I like to use little pieces of tape to hold it into place before I put the big ring around and really secure it. Now that we have our ducting on, we're going to go ahead and attach the rest of the tape around the seam to make sure that it's airtight. Now that we have our duct tightly and secured against our fan, we're going to do the same thing to our carbon filter. Remember, easy trick, put a piece of tape up top to hold the duct there while you work the rest of it. Put a piece of tape on the sides and on the bottom to give it a nice secure lock while you go ahead and tape up the rest. Now that we've completed our carbon filter and fan setup, we're going to take our cord for our fan, snip it, and put it through this porthole so we can easily have access to plug it in. Now it's time to hang our H22 controller and our second fan. To do so, we're going to take our ratchet, do the same thing we did before by wrapping it 4 times over the bar. Again, this gives us nice leverage, and then we're going to attach our fan again. We're going to take our ratchets, connect them to our metal brackets, make sure it's secured on, and ratchet it up. It's ducting time. All right, guys, just like before, we're gonna duct from our exhaust, but we're gonna put the duct, instead of attached to something, outside the tent and just sit there freely. This is gonna blow and exhaust all that hot air out of the tent. Make sure that you leave yourself extra room so that duct will hang and get outside of your tent. So it's not just from here to here, you wanna make sure that you have excess amount of ducting. It's that time again to cut the duct. So remember, now that we have our spot, we're just gonna go ahead, cut down the center of our ducting, open it up, and find that middle spot. You're gonna take your tin snips or your clips, and cut it away just like so. To go ahead and get started, we're gonna take our duct and throw one in out the porthole. As you can see, it's giving it support and holding a lot of this up. Now we're still going to use the same trick. Use a little tape on the top to hold our ducting on, and then work the rest of it on and give it little pieces of tape on the side just to help it to nice and secure. Then we're going to go ahead and tape around the whole outside, making it airtight. Now that we have our duct attached and our tape on here to keep it nice and secure, we're going to go ahead and make it airtight by securing all the seams. Really easy way to determine how much tape you're going to use. Just go around it, do a quick little measure, and we're ready. Start by attaching one piece and work your way around. And it's okay if you rip your tape. Just take it to the next part and continue again. All right, with our fan and our ducting attached, we're ready to plug in our HT2 controller. These are your HT2 controller components. You have your HT2 controller and you have your monitor and your sensor cable. Now, this is your controller that's light sensitive that we're going to teach you how to control and how to program. And this is your sensor cable that's going to determine what's going on in your environment. We're going to take the black extension cord that came with your kit, push it through this little porthole. I like to wrap it around this outside pole to make sure it's nice and snug up top. And then we're going to plug in the HT2 controller right in. Now this is going to give it power as well as keep it out of the way. Now that we have our controller hung, it's time to put in our monitoring and sensoring cable up. It's very simple. We can loop it right around this main pole in the middle. We're gonna just pull the cables over here and plug it in to the Ethernet cable on the side. Now, this cord comes with a twisty tie. I highly suggest keeping it on hand and tying up the rest of your cord. Now we have our monitoring station set up. The last ducting work we're going to do is adding our passive air intake, and that's going to be with our dust shroom. Now, this is going to absorb any particles, dirt, or anything like that from coming inside your tent while your exhaust is running. To begin, we're going to take our ducting, throw it inside, take our dust shroom, and place it right on the ground. Now, you will notice it's in a plastic bag. This is because the dust shroom has oil on it, which is going to trap and capture all those contaminants. What we want to do is punch a little hole right through, and just give us a little bit of room to work here. Now, there is a little ring. You're not going to be able to tape the ducting on here, so you're going to need a flathead screwdriver to be able to undo the ring to be able to attach your ducting. Now that we have our ring loosened up, we're going to put our ducting through the hole. Now that we have it through the hole, we're going to tighten our ring and make sure it's nice and snug so that the duct does not fall out. All right, when you're able to lift your dust shroom with your duct, it's nice and secure and you have your dust shroom attached. Only thing left to do is pull off your plastic. And now you have your passive air filtration installed. In this next segment of the video, we're going to be installing our oscillating fans. Now the 5x5 tent comes with two. So we'll show you how to install one, and you can place these anywhere inside your tent. Our next step is to hang our lights. To start, we're going to take our heavy-duty ratchets and go around the crossbar. This is going to give it support and going to hang either side of the light. Now that we have our ratchets hung to our cross beams, it's time to go ahead and lower down our ratchets to the ground. It's very simple. Press the release valve and go ahead and pull that string all the way down. We're going to do it to both sides. Now, this allows us to make sure that when we install the light, we don't have to lift it all the way up. We're going to install it from the ground up and then go ahead and ratchet it up. Now that we have our ratchets hanging, it's time to go ahead and set up our light. First things first is you want to get the 3-inch foam that came with your box on the top, and you want to set it down just like so, right in the middle, and you're going to lay the light on top of it, face down, so the diodes don't break and that you keep your light safe. Now that we have our foam board down, it's time to go ahead and set our light on top. It's really easy. Just make sure you put the flat end down and gently come down and lay your light. Next, we're going to take our V-hooks and we're going to put them right through what we like to call the rabbit ears. Now you want to make sure that these are nice and secure because this is what's going to be holding on to your light. We've already lowered our ratchet down. So you're going to go ahead, connect your ratchet to the V-hook and give it a little bit of tension. This is going to start to give it a little bit of pressure so it holds it all up. Same thing on this side. Now we're checking the connections just to make sure everything's nice and snug and tight, and we're ready to ratchet it up. Now that we have our ratchets in place, we're nice and secure, it's time to go ahead and get this light off the ground. Now that we have our light over halfway, you can start by using one part at a time, lifting it up to your desired height. Now that we have our light hung in its appropriate position, it's time to go ahead and plug in our cord. To make this very simple, very easy, I'm going to show you guys a little trick to keep your cord management in style. After we get done plugging it in, we're going to go right over this top pole and out this miniature porthole over here, which is made for your cords. This way your cords will be out of the way and it'll be easily attached to your timer. We're going to start with our power strip. Once we have this plugged in, everything else is going to plug directly into this. The first thing we're going to plug in is our timer. Now you might be wondering why I have this little pigtail. The timer itself would take up a little bit too much space on that outlet that we want to make sure that we give you enough space to plug everything else in. So to begin, we're going to plug our timer into the pigtail and go ahead and plug this into anywhere you like. To set your timer, you're going to go ahead and plug in your light. Next, you're going to make sure that you put it onto the timer, which is going to make sure that you're using this. Or if you want it on 24/7, you can go ahead and click the on button. You'll notice that all the black dials are raised up. To set the time, you want to go ahead and push these dials down. Just like so. If you're running a vegetative cycle, that would be 18 hours on and 6 hours off, meaning you're going to have 18 hours pushed down and 6 hours raised up. If you do a flower cycle, you're going to go to a 12-12, meaning 12 of these are going to be pushed down and 12 are going to be raised up. And the next thing we're going to plug in is our HT2 controller. Remember, this is the extension cord that goes to the controller itself. By plugging this in, our HT2 is now going to be turned on, and we're going to need to program it. The next cord we're going to plug in is for the carbon filter. Now the fan itself has a different dial on it, so you can have it on off or 1 to 3. It's going to be different settings. So as soon as we plug it in, we have ours cranked up to 3, so you're going to hear it roar as soon as we turn on. The last couple cords that we're going to plug in are our 2 oscillating fans. So I have one here. All you need to do, plug it right into your outlet, and it's going to turn itself on. Well, I've come to smoke your bud! No, but seriously guys, I know you're probably thinking, we forgot this little piece, but we didn't. This is the final piece that you're going to put onto your tent to make sure it's complete. This is the flood liner for the bottom of your tent. It has 4 little Velcro corner pieces that we're going to put around the pole, and we're going to put this down before we put our trays in. The reason we wait till last to put this in is because we don't want to get it dirty by walking around inside the tent while we install everything else. So now that we're here, we're going to take this and elegantly put in the corners, just like you were setting the table at Grandma's house. Now that we have our mat completely laid out, we're going to take the Velcro pieces in the corners and put them around the pole in the back. It's very simple. You just find the one with the sticky end, push it all the way through, and then attach the other side, and voila, it's nice and secure. Gonna go ahead and lift it up in that corner and continue to work on the rest of the 4. Now that we have our tent fully assembled, the last thing to do is put in our flood trays. Now you're going to have 2 of them for this 5x5 tent. So to easily install, we're going to slide the first one in. Once you have one in on that one side, all you need to do is take your second one and put it right next to it. They should fit nice and snug, just like these do, and now you're ready to start growing. Next, we're going to put in our hygrometer and our thermometer. This is going to check the temperature and monitor your humidity. This is just going to give you an idea of what's going on in your tent at all times. It's a pretty easy install. All you need to do is take your battery, get it plugged in. It's going to start turning on. Make sure your sensor wire is plugged in, and this will give you your readings. If you want to change from Celsius, all you got to do is hit this button in the back from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And voila, now you're ready to hang your monitor. All we need to do, unwrap this. Now you want your probe to be about right above your canopy level. So if your canopy's on the ground to start your plants, that's where you want your cord. And as they grow, you want to continue to raise it just to make sure that this sensor is above your canopy. I like to go ahead and just loop it around one of the bars. Get it as far down as I can. And with this, you can either zip tie it to your pole, or I like to just have it laying on the ground so I can see a nice digital imprint. Thank you guys for tuning in and watch our complete build of our 5x5 complete grow kit. For any tips and tricks, I highly encourage you guys to go to our YouTube channel and follow along with our Grow Along series to learn how you can get the most out of your garden. Thank you guys again, and we'll grow with you later.
Now that your tent is assembled, it is time to install your scrog frame. In this video, we will be demonstrating how to assemble the frame and netting using an empty tent. However, in a real-world application, your tent would have your plants growing in it, and therefore you would usually wait to install the netting until your plants were actually ready to have the scrog applied. Attach the ratchet hangers to the tent frame at the top of each corner. Hook the ratchet hanger clip through the hole located in each corner piece. It is easier to do this prior to attaching the side scrog poles. Once attached to the corner piece, lower the corner pieces to whatever height you wish. Attach your scrog frame poles to the corner pieces. The frame will act as a nice tent support to keep the tent sides from bowing inwards. To attach the trellis net, open the net and find the corners. Once you find the corners, clip the corners of the netting to the ratchet on one corner of the frame. Find the other corner of the netting and clip it to the other ratchet on the same side. Toss the netting to the other side of the scrog. If you have help, have someone on the other side waiting to hand the net to. Clip the other corners to the opposite side of the scrog frame corners where the ratchets meet. Pull to make tight prior to attaching the corners. Start adding zip ties to secure the net to the scrog frame poles. Work your way around the whole frame, attaching the netting with zip ties. Lastly, trim the excess netting off the scrog poles. Your scrog is set. You can raise or lower with your ratchets you installed on the corners. Raise one corner a little at a time until it is at your preferred height. Now you're ready to start growing with this complete 4x4 kit from Black Dog LED. Be sure to follow all the growing instructions included with your Phytomax 2 light and to reach out to Black Dog LED at any time for growing help and questions about your products. Happy growing!